and welcome to Sharing with Shellshock, where it's my personal podcast with different topics, various topics throughout each episode with different guests or guests. I'm your host, ShellshockPrime, and tonight it's all about voice acting and gaming, where we talk about voice acting in general in video games, and Michael Macaw is our guest. Hello, Michael.
Hey, Shellshock. How you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Pretty good. Just got off work and, just immediately entered weekend mode here. I am ready to relax this nice quiet weekend.
Yep. Yeah, because
a lot of gaming in.
Yeah, because we've definitely got a lot to talk about in regards to voice acting and gaming. And there's definitely so much that I know that we could definitely do in regards to how voice acting impacted in general, like either one of us, and also how like any aspirations and all that stuff. We definitely have a lot of topics. Right now let's just talk in general about what type of content do you do to start things off?
Currently I am a Twitch streamer, Twitch affiliate, and I am also a independent voice actor. Currently just, auditioning for anything I come across. I don't have a professional demo made yet. I'm not part of the pro scene at the moment, but I'm definitely, getting my feet wet. I've been in a couple smaller projects, and I'm hoping that I can move on to something a little bigger as we as time goes on.
All right. Sounds like a good idea. Sounds like good. I really think that in regards to voice acting, I always like hearing how people in general get into all that. But in regards to streaming, as I've been watching your streams for the past year, and it's funny because I remember I remember finding out about your streams because of the Good Vibes Gaming Discord server, and at the time you were streaming Super Mario Sunshine. That's how I actually first started watching you.
Yeah, that's that game was an absolute doozy. That was definitely still back when I was in my saltier phase. I've definitely tried to cut back on that a little bit as of recently, but it was fun. I mean, I've been streaming for about I should know this because I talk about it all the time. I've been streaming for about 5.5 years now, and just kind of sometimes I just it gets a little rough, but when you're playing a game you enjoy, you kind of just work through it, work through the hard parts.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I've stopped by your streams when I can. I mean, obviously it was a little harder before because I was working until 10 o'clock at night. Now that my schedule's changed, I might be able to swing by a little more often.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping to keep that going in the future with you.
All right. And I'll be sure to keep watching your streams whenever I can.
Yeah.
It's just the other thing is that in regards to games, because I know you generally like Nintendo games and practically anything else you could play on Nintendo primarily.
Yeah, more or less. I am definitely the Switch is definitely my system of choice. You can kind of see it over in the corner there with the yellow Joy-Con sticking out.
Yeah.
It's just what I have in my room. I do have my brother has a PS4, which I was thinking about doing a few games on, and I have done PC games as well. Nintendo's just kind of the easiest platform to go with because it's got the most games I know I'll play. The Switch is just a very versatile console, and I just really enjoy using it. And it's what I have in my room, so it's the easiest to just access at any time. And that capture card I have at least plays nice enough that it makes it easy.
Yeah.
So I tend to gravitate towards playing Switch games, but it's not an exclusive thing. I definitely have played some other games. I played FF7 Remake a couple years ago, and I still think about that stream. I really want to hopefully get a PS5 at some point so I could play the Intergrade section of the remake.
Oh yeah. Yeah, because there's definitely some games I would like to do in the future because I want to get myself an Xbox Series X. I want to upgrade my PC. Eventually, I get a PlayStation, but it all depends on when they're available and when the games I want come out on that.
Yeah, I mean the getting PS5 is just a coin flip at this point, no matter where it is or what's happening.
Oh yeah.
I'm not really too up for getting it just at the moment, just because there's nothing really on it that I absolutely want to play right now. Same with the Xbox, really. Like, come to think of it, like I barely have like when I'm not streaming, I'm pretty much not playing games now. It's like really hard to find time for it.
Yeah.
But yeah, at some point, I definitely want to get a PS5. That'll probably be the next system I get, but I might wait and see what happens because like you could kind of see around me, my room's a little cramped. This is
Hmm.
I've been living in this room my whole life, and hopefully at some point I'll be getting out of here. I don't know when, but hopefully I'll get in a little more space to myself to load up with games and other fun crap.
Oh yeah. Yeah, because for me, like, because I've been living in this apartment for like about like this year actually marked 25 years because I lived in a different apartment from when I was born to like
Hmm.
when I was around 11 years old, and now like it's just and I thought my room was actually pretty small, but it's just the fact that it's the way that it's shaped. Like there's so much more I want to put in here, but it's I'm not going to be able to have room for everything. So
Yeah. I totally understand that. Like I'm already realizing that like just even game boxes, I'm not able to get a ton of space here. Um, I showed you this earlier, but those are my Switch games over in the corner there. They're actually blocking my TV. I don't have
yeah.
room for them.
Oh
I don't
yeah.
have room for another shelf in here, and I have to like figure out what I want to do with that.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That's always a dilemma. But we're not here to talk about like room
Hmm.
dilemma and how we have to handle things. Tonight we're going to be talking about voice acting and gaming. And but before we get to that, I want to know a little bit more about your gaming background. Exactly, how did you start with video games? What was where you started, and what are your favorites in general? So let's begin.
So I pretty much started as soon as I can like remember. I'm pretty sure when I was like 2 or 3, my family got like a used NES from our cousin. I'm an '80s, well, I'm a '90s kid. I was born in 1987, so I was born like right after the NES came out. We had one of those growing up. I eventually got a Game Boy and SNES. Gaming's pretty much been with me my whole life. It's been like standard stuff, your Mario games, Kirby games, Zelda. I actually didn't get into until a fair bit later, but going past that, yeah, I was pretty much a Nintendo kid like my entire childhood and adolescence. And so was my brother. My little brother was also very into those games as well, and we kind of shared the systems. We had our own Game Boys. I think the only non-Nintendo system we had for a long time was like a Game Gear that we had like 2 games for,
Hmm.
uh, which was Sonic 2 and You Mean Bean Machine, which apparently is like everyone that's owned a Game Gear has had those 2 games. That's apparently like a universal experience from what I've seen.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's pretty much just been all Nintendo up until I was in high school. Then I think what it was is that my brother got an Xbox, and then we'd gotten like a hand-me-down PS2, and that's when we kind of branched out. PC games I never really played until I'd already graduated college because I actually never had like a good computer
Yeah.
until then. And even now, I have like a better PC, but I still don't play that many PC games.
Hmm.
But I'm definitely branching out more and more as time goes on and trying to like catch up on a lot of games I missed, especially from the PlayStation 1 era. I've been playing quite a few of those since I started streaming. Particularly which games? Well, Mega Man X4 was kind of the first big PlayStation game I had ever played, and that's made me realize like, wow, there's actually some good stuff on these other systems.
Oh yeah.
Um, a lot actually, speaking of though, that's kind of interesting because like a lot of people, they know me as like a big fan of Mega Man Battle Network and Mega Man in general. I actually did not really get into Mega Man until I was already in high school. Up until that point, my only real exposure to Mega Man was like 2 on the Game Boy, which is like not that great, and a couple episodes of the
Nah.
Ruby Spears show. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not a great game when your most powerful weapon is a pogo stick that you get from a boss that you fight for about 2 seconds.
Oh,
Um,
that game actually has some other issues too. Like the sound is
yeah,
definitely like a big issue in comparison to like a lot of the other Mega Man Game Boy games.
yeah. It's see for me, like I enjoyed it growing up. Like I didn't realize how bad it was until I played the other 4.
Oh yeah.
Um, but it definitely that curve of those Game Boy Mega Mans definitely goes up. But I mean the big entry point for me was Battle Network. Like it's weird to say that, but like Battle Network is really what got me into Mega Man. And from there, eventually ended up playing pretty much all of them. I think there's only a few spin-off games I haven't played at this point. I've played every main numbered Mega Man game.
Yeah.
at this point. Yep. Including like the last two I actually played, I think were X7 and X8. So that was kind of like a downturn there, but it was fun playing those, knowing that they weren't the best. I know X8 gets a lot of praise. I actually kind of felt it was a little bland, but X7 was just a ride because it was so bad, but
Yeah.
so fun. It was funny at the same time. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. Have you played the Legends games?
Yes, that was actually like the last series I got into because for a long time my friends were kind of like, "Yeah, Legends wasn't that good. I didn't like it." I eventually did play it. I've played all three of them, including Misadventures of Tron Bonne.
Hmm.
I actually played them in storyline order, so I played that one first.
Nice.
I very much enjoyed them. I enjoyed the first game in Tron Bonne a lot more than I enjoyed two. I actually kind of like my hot take with the Legend series is that I feel like two didn't age particularly well when I played it. There's a lot of aspects to the dungeon design in that game that didn't really resonate with me. I felt very frustrated in a couple of the spots. Um, and yeah, just really just the dungeon design in that game, like the lava dungeon and the forest dungeon or the jungle dungeon at the beginning. I kind of had a lot of issues with how they were laid out and how to get from like to and from them. The water dungeon not getting the gravity boots or whatever until the very end. It was like it just there's a lot of bits about it I didn't like. The way the game was set up and the soundtrack and the voice acting were all great. Like I love the game from a presentation standpoint. It was just a few gameplay blips on it that really I felt were not as good as Legends 1.
Yeah. Like eventually I need to play Legends 2 and I need to actually beat Legends 1 because I was stuck at the final boss for a while and then like I just never went back. But I will eventually get to Legends 1 myself. Never played Tron Bonne and eventually I get to Legends 2 afterwards. Um
Excuse me.
okay.
Yeah, no, sorry. I'm all right. Again, I'm just recovering from a long work week, so I'm a little a little parched.
That's fine. Yeah.
Uh, um, Trombone's an interesting game because it's got that one main dungeon, but it's also kind of built around like a bunch of smaller tasks that you have to do to clear it, and it gets a little repetitive, but it's ultimately a very fun time. It's definitely a more interesting game that I would recommend checking out at some point, if not played the whole thing.
Yeah. But it's like when it comes to the Mega Man series, like there's quite a few mainline games I still have to do. Like I still have to do Mega Man ZX Advent,
Mhm.
the whole Legend series, um, and then like there's also the Battle Network, Star Force, and there's a few others, but those are the main things that I need to do. But but it's like I when it comes to Mega Man, because I will say this, like going back to when I did the Mega Man discussion week like last month with 112, and I told them that because I went from Mega Man 3 was my first game to Mega Man X was the next, no, Mega Man X4 was the next game I played. I played it on Sega Saturn. Then I went to Mega Man 2 Game Boy because a school counselor had a Game Boy and allowed me to play some games, including Super Mario Land and Tetris and a couple other stuff. And after that, the next one was, I believe it was Mega Man and Bass on the GBA. And then
Hmm.
after that was the collection, and then the rest is history. Like
Yeah.
it's just weird how like the pattern of like how I started to like where I'm at right now, and I've actually gotten through like most of the games. It's just a few more that I got to do at some point. It's just I got a lot on my plate, so
Yeah, it's totally understandable. I've got a ton of games that like I would love to finish in different series that I've just never done. I recently just finished streaming Kirby and the Forgotten Land,
oh yeah,
and that game was great. But I have not played Star Allies, Planet Robobot, Return to Dreamland. Pretty much like all of the New Age Kirby games, I've only played like 40% of them.
yeah.
So that's a lot of ground I'm gonna have to cover someday. It's a shame too because I know Robobot is an excellent game, and
Oh,
I
it
would love to
is.
play that.
It is.
Um, I'm very much a big fan of Kirby. Kirby was kind of like I don't know, like it's kind of weird to place him in like how my gaming history worked, but like Kirby Superstar was like such a huge deal for me.
Me
And I
too.
had not played like Kirby 2 or Kirby's Adventure. That my previous Kirby game was the first one. So that game was just like blew me away because like the very beginning of that game is just Kirby 1 and I'm like this is the first section of the game and it's the entirety of the first game I played. That's amazing.
Oh yeah, like actually, like I'm in the same boat because my first Kirby game was Dreamland 1, and I didn't get to play any other Kirby game until Superstar. But I played Superstar like very late, like many years like after the Super Nintendo was not relevant anymore.
Yeah.
And after that, now it's like the main games I still need to do are Amazing Mirror, Canvas Curse, Squeeze Squad, Mass Attack, Triple Deluxe, and Rainbow Curse. Those are the only ones I gotta do. I will tell you, Planet Robobot is a fantastic game.
Yeah.
And Star Allies is like, it's not a bad game. It's just like not a game to write home about in comparison to other Kirby games in the series. But it's still decent. It just could have been a lot better.
I've heard that I heard that like the whole package now with all the major updates released for it, it's a lot better than it was at release. It just seems to me that the main issue with it is that it's very repetitive because you have to do the helper mode I don't know if you have to do it with every character to fully beat it, but it's like that's a lot of characters after all the friend areas were at or friend guest characters were added, and that's like an hour and a half each to get through that. So it's like if there's like 30 of those, you're looking at 30 hours of gameplay just for that one mode when there's already like 3 other modes that you have to play through in it.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, I heard it's a very like by the books Kirby game, which at the time it was Kirby. What were we gonna do? It's good. It's not. It may not blow the world away, but it's pretty good. I mean, Forgotten Land like that did a really good job of innovating and bringing Kirby to 3D while also still keeping it very close to what Kirby kind of is as a whole. I really didn't like after the first few minutes, it really didn't feel like, oh wow, this is some like big like different thing for Kirby. It just felt like I was playing a Kirby game in 3D, and that's honestly a big compliment towards the game because it just shows how timeless and how well Kirby's style of gameplay ages and feels over time.
Oh yeah.
You can't really go wrong with it.
Yeah, I too recently finished the game. Like the only thing I got to do right now is the Coliseum, but after that that I'm practically just done with the game. Like aside from getting like a couple of the gotcha stuff like that you have to get with the coins. And also I do have one trial I haven't done yet, which the next time I go to it, I gotta do that. I won't spoil it for those who haven't actually watched my streams yet or haven't actually like got up to the part. But I will say though that Kirby and the Forgotten Land is incredible. It's definitely up there for me as like one of the best games. I still need to process as to where I place it in the whole best Kirby game series thing, but it's definitely going to be high up there for me.
I would definitely put it up in like the top 5. I don't know if I put it in top 3. I'd have to. I actually really haven't done a Kirby ranking, so at some point I'll do that. I will say that of the games you have not played, Amazing Mirror is definitely worth your time. I mean, all of them are, but Amazing Mirror is great because it's just like it's a Kirby game, but with a Metroid like setup to it, and how the rooms are connected. And I honestly loved that. I didn't really give it much thought when I first played it as like a teenager, but like going back through it a couple years ago, I was like, this is actually a really well designed, well thought out game, like most Kirby games, but it's definitely an interesting. It's one of those steps where it's like it's innovative, but also keeps the Kirby feel. So I would definitely, if you're looking to get one of the other Kirby games out of your backlog, I would definitely recommend that one sooner rather than later.
Yeah, but so that's basically like a little bit of background of the games that like you've been playing and like how you started and everything. So let's go on to the next topic in general about how did you get into voice acting, or rather, like how have you started following voice acting in video games? Like, when was it that you started following voice acting?
So it's kind of a weird, like, it's like the beginning is like very fuzzy because this has been kind of an on and off thing for a very long time for me. I for me, voice acting in video games wasn't really like a huge thing because, like, for the first game I played that had any voice acting in it was actually it was I think it was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3 on the NES, where they had those very like bit crushed voice clips of the turtles going "Cowabunga," and I think that was kind of like one of like there was like 2 voice clips. And I think that was one. There was like I don't remember what the other one was because I never got far enough in the game to hear it. But it's kind of fuzzy when it just happened. It kind of just faded in over time. I think if I had to like take a estimate here, the first game with like extensive voice acting I played was probably on the GameCube. It was probably, come to think of it, it might have been Sonic Adventure 2 Battle. That might have been like the first game I played that was like fully voiced.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to think if there's any N64 games, but it's like Mario 64, Mischief Makers, which is a very fun. If you haven't heard of that game, I would definitely recommend looking up.
Oh, I've been
It's
wanting
a
to play
Treasure
that game for years.
I'm hoping Treasure puts that on NSO because
Yeah.
Treasure's been very supportive of the online service, so I'm hoping we'll see that at some point.
Yeah.
Um, I'm trying to think like Banjo-Kazooie now that doesn't have voice acting really.
Nah, it's just a bunch of like gibberish, like the mumbo jumbo stuff. No pun intended
Yeah.
because of the character in the game, but yeah.
That's another game I want to replay soon.
Oh
But
yeah.
yeah, to be honest, I think it was less video games up until like the GameCube era and more just, cartoons and anime. Because like at the time, I grew up watching like I'm a 90s kid, so I grew up watching a lot of Nickelodeon,
Yeah.
a lot of Looney Tunes and all those like old like cartoons on the air that they still air today. So, anyone could really get into that.
Same.
And also around 1996, 97 is when I started getting into a couple of anime, especially with like the release of Pokemon in the United States. I started watching that, and there was a couple of very like sporadic ones beforehand. I loved cartoons growing up, but the truth is like I never really paid any attention to the voice acting. I just kind of just it was just part of the whole package. I just really enjoyed like watching and listening to cartoons.
Mm-hmm.
Around the time I went into college, though, that's when I really started getting into like, I really started like watching a lot more anime. I started, I guess, at that point, a lot more games had voice acting in it, and I was kind of like in a spot in college where I had to pick a major because I'd gotten undecided, and I didn't know what I really wanted to do. So after a couple weeks of thinking about it, and I had like a deadline coming up to choose my major. I was like doing stuff I enjoyed and watching TV, listening or playing video games, and I thought to myself like voice acting seems pretty cool, and there's a lot of like there's a lot of stuff you could do with it. And I at the time I obviously only really thought about like cartoons and video games. There's a lot more to it than that.
Mm-hmm.
But I was like, you know what? Maybe I can focus on studying around that, and if I can get into it later, I'll go ahead with it. So that's kind of how I chose my college major. I ended up choosing communications in college,
Yeah.
which was, in hindsight, not the best choice. I should have picked broadcasting because our college did offer that. I don't know why I didn't, but that got me through college. And then it just kind of remained an interest for a bit. I never really invested in it. I never really tried that hard to like get into it. And what happened was after college, I was just kind of coasting for a bit. I had a part-time job. I wasn't really enjoying where things were going. And what happened was after a certain point, I think it was around like 2012, 2013. I think it's kind of started in 2012 though.
Yeah.
I really started getting into like the whole scene of like internet broadcasting and like shows. I was really getting into I used to be into the Halo Machinima Red versus Blue when I was when I was in high school with my brother.
Oh yeah, that
And
was good.
yeah, it was really fun back in the day. And I mean, I know they're still going with that now, and I haven't watched any of it, so I can't really comment on if it's still good or not. But that being said, I did happen to get back into a lot of Rooster Teeth stuff at the time, which they're the people who did Red versus Blue. I got into some of their other stuff, especially their Let's Plays, and I just remember thinking like these guys are really good on the mic, and I really enjoy that, and I really want to see if I can maybe do that. But of course, I still had other stuff going on. I was kind of focused on trying to get out of my current job and finding like a real job because it was a side retail job that didn't even pay like a decent wage. So I kind of
Right.
didn't want to deal with it. It was annoying. I didn't like dealing with kids and coming in at night and messing up the store and stuff like that. So, so long story short, there was like a long period where nothing was really going on, and I think during that period, I had managed to move from that job to another very temporary job in like another restaurant where I was kind of just working behind the scenes, and it was a little less stressful at least.
Mhm.
And I remember at that time, I had tried to. I'm sorry. I'm actually like losing my train of thought. At the time, right before that, I had started streaming. Like actually, that's when I started doing my streams on Twitch for a couple months, and it was going all right. But then when I got this job, I was like, because it was the beginning of 2017, I was like, the Switch is coming out. I missed out on the Wii U because I just didn't have the money. Nothing else is going on right now. I'll save up and get one.
Yeah.
So I did. I managed to get a Switch at launch with Breath of the Wild, and that was pretty much like 2 months of my life right there playing through that.
Same here.
It was, yeah. I did close to. I thought I did 100%, and then I looked at the completion percentage, and it's like 61.
No, it's not 100% unless you get all the 900 something Korok seeds.
I might do that at some point. I still haven't done the DLC, so at some point I'm going to go back to that before the sequel comes out.
Yeah.
But at the time, I was kind of in a weird place. I was kind of thinking about like what I wanted to do, and I thought about I always had voice acting on the mind, but like I never really tried all that hard to get into it. And Breath of the Wild, was a big deal because it was the first Zelda game that like really had like all fully voiced cutscenes, and the cast was extremely professional. There were a lot of people involved. It was like a big deal.
Yeah.
And after I'd finished the game, one of my friends like told me about a couple of the voice actors, and they're like, oh, they're on Twitter, you should follow them and stuff like that. And long story short, I got to be acquainted with at least one of them, and it kind of re-sparked my interest in voice acting. And I think like that, along with a couple other people that were being influential in my life at the time, they kind of gave me like a kick in the rear and got me to start really trying a bit. And that was 2017. 5 years later, and here I am. Really, there's not a whole lot else to say about it. Like I just kind of, I took my mic at the time, started auditioning. I gradually got better equipment as time went on. It hasn't been the most active career so far. I've definitely had a lot more misses than hits, but I'm still here and I'm still trying, and I'm definitely doing better, and I definitely want to keep investing in it, and hopefully. If not get to like the professional, like high level voice acting, at least become more known in the indie scene and try to make a name there. Because right now I feel like I'm kind of not doing enough to get my name out there, and I think that's something I have to do a little more of. And the best way to do that is just to get better at what I'm doing. Because right now I definitely can hear stuff that I want to improve on in my own voice, and that would hopefully help out a bit more.
Yeah, that's the thing, because like I know for a fact that it's never easy to get into anything like this, but because like I know for a fact that for me, there was a point where when I was young that I kind of wanted to get into voice acting, but I just never really felt confident enough, and I just never really like went any further. I tried to do imitations, and it just never really works out because either I never get the exact voice pattern right, or I could never match the tone that like a voice actor goes for with a certain character. And I ended up just thinking to myself that in terms of voice acting, it wasn't for me in terms of wanting to go for it, but in terms of being a fan of voice acting, that's a whole different story. Because I've been following voice acting since I was like around like 11 or 12, but more so like as I got older. Like the first time I actually like seen anything about voice acting was because like I too was a huge fan of Nickelodeon growing up, and I remember they had this thing, like it was like one of the commercial bumpers. They had like the three main voice actors of Oddworld Monsters. They were talking about the characters that they voiced in the show, and that one of the voice actresses, Christine Kavanaugh, who may she rest in peace, she voiced Oblina in the show, and she was also the voice of Chucky in Rugrats at the time. And she was talking about like how Oblina, like how she resonated with the character Oblina. Like I remember seeing like that, and I was like, wow, like these people are actually pretty talented. Because at the time, I didn't really see a lot of the people behind the voices. I just seen the cartoons with the voices, and that's it. It just opened up a completely new world for me. Just how like these people would just go out of their way to voice these characters, and they've done so much for so many years. Like many of them are still around, still doing it to this day.
Yeah.
Like for example, like the voice of Fred Jones with Scooby Doo, as well as, and then later on Scooby Doo, Frank Welker, he's still voice acting to this day. Like he's done so much. And then you have like so many other voice actors in general. I'm like, wow, like they all have been going at it for all these years. And like so many timeless classic shows, like especially like the ones I grew up with in general and stuff like before I was even born and way after the fact. And now it's like I've seen so many like people passionate about wanting to do voice acting to the point where I'm like if this is something that you want to do, obviously go for it.
It's definitely it's definitely a much bigger community now than it used to be. I mean, I was listening a while ago. I was listening to a voiceover podcast. It was like a very short one. There was like an episode every week, and I had been listening. I started listening to it when I started getting back into voice acting and starting trying to audition for things. To like the site that it was from was like from when the internet was like first getting big, and I'm listening to like the techniques that they're discussing about like getting an agent, practicing your craft, finding new clients, and so much of it was like outdated to even like a couple years ago, and I'm like, wow, things have really changed in the last like 2 decades. Even with the internet, like with the internet just becoming so much more than it was, it's just like it's changed and the community is way bigger now. There's a lot of stuff that worked back then that won't work now.
Yeah.
So it is I find that because of that it is a lot harder to get into the voice acting industry. You really need to have like the connections and the recommendations and even possibly an agent, though that's not a 100% thing. And again, I'm not the best source to go to on that. That's something you could ask someone that's way more experienced with it about, because I'm not anywhere near that level yet. But yeah, it seems like it's hard to get into. It's a lot easier to do in practice than it is in theory. Really, all you need to do is find a project that you're interested in, get your mic out, make sure it sounds okay. There's a lot of ways to treat your space to make it sound good.
Yeah.
Toss an audition and see what happens, because sometimes people, you never know what kind of voice someone will like. Sometimes you'll throw something that doesn't sound like it works at all, and they'll pick you. So you just have to throw it out there.
Mm-hmm.
And I know you mentioned impressions and them not sounding perfect. That's actually I've come to find, and any professional will tell you this. That's not a bad thing at all if you feel you can't nail an impression, because what you could do is then take how it sounds and kind of just turn it into your own thing. A lot of popular and experienced and seasoned voice actors, they have go-to voices for all these projects. That's why like you'll hear like a voice actor kind of do the same voice in multiple shows, because that's like their go-to voice. It may not be their natural voice, which also is another thing. If your natural voice is good enough for a role, then go for it. You don't have to try to force like a certain like tone or dialect to every audition you do.
Yeah.
But having some set voices that you could do consistently is always a good idea, because then you could pull them out, you could use them for any situation, and it might get you a role that you didn't think you were going to get.
Oh,
and I
yeah.
mean, it's the same thing for a demo role, really. Like your demo role should have those voices on it, because that showcases what you can do and what you can do consistently. And it's kind of that's kind of how that goes. And yeah, speaking of again, like you mentioned before with Nickelodeon, I remember there was one piece a long time ago that they did, where it was like an interview with the cast of Hey Arnold. And what made that show very unique, and it's especially in its earlier seasons, is that they actually cast kids to do the voices of the kids instead of casting, oftentimes for younger children they would cast like just a woman, like a woman who would be able to do like a higher pitched voice. Now for this show it was kind of like they were casting people that were actually in the age range for it, and it was a little unique because a lot of shows at the time didn't do that. And that kind of, at the time, I was a little kid too, and I really didn't think much of it. But thinking back on it, I'm like, wow, that was kind of more of an influence than I thought, because they really showed that like anyone can get into this if they're given the right opportunities. And that's kind of a big thing that's going around the voice acting community nowadays, is that we're trying. We're not me specifically, because I'm not the one handling the projects,
Mm-hmm.
but a lot of the project runners are trying to reach out and be a lot more diverse with how they're casting, in terms of gender, race, fitting certain roles, trying to make certain roles fit a more neutral description better, trying to make more roles especially for Black voice actors, for trans voice actors.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a really great push that I love to see happening.
Yeah.
I'm definitely I'm definitely, I'm very much, standard white guy voice actor. So I'm very much, I'm good on the amount of opportunities I'm getting. I love seeing more opportunities uh, come up for less represented communities and less represented people. Um, and that's leading to like all sorts of pushes for improvement on the professional level too.
Yep.
And ultimately, it makes the whole industry a lot more accessible when these changes are made. So
Oh
you
yeah.
know it's worth like trying to keep pushing for like having new and different types of voice actors enter the scene, not just for roles that they're good for, but for any roles really, because a good voice actor should be able to adapt to most roles that they're at least being considered for.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I definitely agree with a lot of that stuff, and I'm really happy that there's a lot of people who are more like getting more ambitious and wanting to actually get into voice acting. It's a really good thing. Um, so, which leads to the next topic.
Mhm.
What are your like voice acting inspirations, or like are there any like voice actors in general that you feel like influence you?
Influenced me specifically. It's kind of weird because like I'm still trying to find my identity. There's definitely a lot of voice actors I look up to and try to take some inspiration for when I'm auditioning for stuff or when I'm voicing stuff on stream. I've had a lot of people kind of comment that I sound a lot like when I'm doing like kind of like a standard character voice on stream. It sounds a lot like a typical like JRPG protagonist voice,
Mm-hmm.
which don't get me wrong, there's a lot of variation in that, but it also makes me very specifically think of a few specific voice actors like Bryce Papenbrook, Yuri Lowenthal. Um, there was one more that I had in mind and I can't remember who it was. Johnny Young Bosch
Oh
is
yeah.
another one. His voice acting story is like really like I don't know if you've heard of how he got into voice acting, but it's because he used to be on Power Rangers,
Yep.
and then I think what happened was they liked his voice on that show so much that they offered to have him audition for Trigun, which ended up being his first anime, and he
Yep.
ended up playing Vash in it, which was like a main character. So it goes to show that like just acting experience in general can definitely help with voice acting as well.
Yeah.
Um, that said, it's definitely not a requirement. A lot of people say like you need to be classically trained in acting to be a voice actor. I know quite a few voice actors who have little to none of that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's just a matter of finding what works for you to help you improve. But again, I'm going a little off topic here. So yeah, they've definitely inspired me in some of the auditions I do. I don't try to mimic them as much as I just try to pull what works for them and see how I could twist it to work for me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they're definitely the more like legacy. Not I wouldn't say I guess Johnny Young Bosch would be kind of more of like older school voice acting because that's around when I got into voice acting when he started doing anime and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But like Bryce Papenbrook and Yuri Lowenthal, they definitely have been in more recent stuff. They definitely kind of came into the field a little later. But they're their voices they're iconic. You can recognize them from a mile away, and that's kind of what you want to aim to do. You want to aim to be recognizable, but also still unique. Um, as for other voice actors that have inspired me, not necessarily a voice actor, but the actor Bob Odenkirk. He's kind of had an influence on like so much of my life growing up. He's a comedian. He's also a serious actor as well. He just recently did a movie. I haven't seen it yet, and I really want to because it's like a serious role for him, which is something I haven't really seen a lot from him. He's been on Breaking Bad and he's the main character of Better Call Saul. He's an amazing actor. He's been responsible for so many like comedic and animated stuff that I grew up with in my high school years.
Mm-hmm.
I know he's like one of the big reasons that like Tim Heidecker and Eric Wareheim got really popular on Adult Swim.
Oh
He's
yeah.
had like a big hand in a lot of comedy, and his voice is very recognizable. He did a lot of voiceovers for like Tim and Eric and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And he's always got that kind of like salesman pitch, that very enthusiastic feel to his voice. But then like you watch him in like one of his more serious roles like Breaking Bad or that movie that I haven't seen that I have to really look up because I can't even remember the name of it.
Right.
And you see that he can pull off like a very serious voice, serious demeanor. He's a very flexible actor, and I really look up to the guy. I don't know how much inspiration I've taken from him directly, but I definitely look towards his like range of emotion as like an inspiration for kind of like what I should be capable of overall.
Yeah.
Um, and again, it's it's just it's the experiences that everyone's had that just kind of like kind of culminate in how I look up to them. I mentioned it before, but like with Breath of the Wild, I very much look up to voice actor Sean Shiplock. He's been hitting his stride the last few years. He's definitely been in a lot more stuff.
Yeah.
Like he's been in JoJo. He was in one of my favorite visual novels, Somnium Files, as well as the remake of Zero Escape 999, which is a game that I really love. I actually want to stream that at some point.
Wait, which character was he in 999? Because I did play that like last year, like the Steam version.
In the Steam version, I think he's Santa.
Oh, that was him. Yeah.
Yeah, I think. Oh,
Yeah,
I hope I'm not misremembering because then I'll seem like an ass.
I'll look it up, but continue.
And yeah, and, he's also in JoJo. He was in Breath of the Wild, and he did a lot of characters in Breath of the Wild. Like everyone knows he's Rivali and Tiba. He's also the Great Deku Tree, which is very interesting because like he gets a ton of praise for the former two, but Deku Tree he seems to get a lot more criticism for it than open praise. And I think he was great in the role, honestly. But like it just goes to show that like kind of public perception of a role shouldn't really define like what you do with it. He did what he felt worked, and it's what the casting director and the people working on the game felt what worked. So
Yep.
at the end of the day, it's really about just doing what feels right, what feels right to you, and not what you feel would go over with an audience necessarily. And that just comes later. But but going back to Sean specifically, his kind of like his story. Like I read up on, like because he had a Tumblr back in the day. He would post about like his experiences growing up and becoming a voice actor, and a lot of what he dealt with kind of resonated with me. It wasn't exactly stuff I dealt with, but it was stuff that like I felt like, oh wow, he's definitely gone through his fair share of hardships over the time. And I shouldn't let what's going on, because again, it was a weird place when I played through Breath of the Wild. I was in a weird place in my life. I felt like, oh, I shouldn't let these hardships kind of define me and stop me from trying. And I think that in terms of getting started as a voice actor and actually trying to audition for stuff, he was probably the biggest single inspiration in that regard. Not for his voice acting specifically, but just for who he is and how he carried himself and how he got to where he is. I feel like he was kind of like the biggest like factor in me pursuing it. And I made him aware of that multiple times. We've hung out a few times. I've told him I love his work. He and I are acquaintances, and I just appreciate his friendship so much.
Yeah. Like I actually did want to meet him. He seems like a pretty cool guy. And just going back to like the whole Zero Escape thing. The character is Aoi Kurishiki, who is Santa. So you're right on that.
I knew. Yeah. I figured.
And then,
I knew he had to, because I was like, oh no, what voice? Because here's the thing, I haven't actually played the Steam version yet. I've seen clips of it, but I haven't played that. I've only played the DS and the iOS version of it. I have the Steam version, and one day I will stream it. But I haven't played it, so I couldn't really remember the voices. I knew he was in it. That's all I knew about it.
Mm-hmm. And I was looking up to because Protoman asked who was he in AI. So a character named Pewter.
Yeah, he's the scientist. He's the one who made the eyeball Iba.
Yeah, because 999 on the DS had no voice acting. It wasn't. It wasn't until when it was on PS4. I think it was on Vita as well, and also on Steam, where they actually added voice acting, and now it's on Xbox. I'm honestly shocked it's not on Switch yet.
Yeah, no, that honestly, same. I feel like it's a missed opportunity, especially since they're so keen on porting these games. Because 999 was kind of like a niche DS game, and a lot of people praised it, but it just didn't, it didn't get a lot of widespread appeal when it came out. And even Virtue's Last Reward, when that came out in the 3DS, I had no idea that was a sequel to 999 until a month after it was announced. And I was like, oh, this is another Zero Escape game.
Yeah, I still got to get to that on stream, but I did play that one, and I do think it's a better game than 999. Though I've heard mixed things about the third one, but I do need to stream Virtue's Last Reward on stream before I get to Zero Time Dilemma, and then after that, like I'm practically done with that. And then I'm going to go into the AI in the Somnium Files. I got to do those. Like,
Yeah.
are they coming out with a new one?
Yes, the new one is coming out, I believe, June 24th. That's the Friday. That's actually like right before my birthday, so that works out fine. Someone will end up gifting me that, or
Nice.
I'll just get it myself. But
Yeah.
that's definitely going to be like a day one stream for me, which is unfortunate because the next week I'm going on like a week long trip, so
Oh yeah.
it's going to just be sitting there undone for a while. Which is funny because when I streamed the original Somnium Files, that was me coming off a big hiatus that I had due to changing my position at my current job, and I had played like 80% of the game. Then I went away for a week there, um, which is also coincidentally one of the times I was hanging out with Sean, and he's in
Yeah.
that game. So I stopped playing that. I went away on this trip for a week, and then I came back, and it was like another week before I came back and finished it. And it was just like a 2 week gap where I didn't play it, and I was like, oh man, I really need to get back to that soon.
Yeah.
So I'm definitely looking forward to the sequel. Regarding Zero Escape, I will say a lot of people say 999 is the best. I definitely think Virtue's Last Reward is tied with it. It's definitely better in some aspects than others, and I will say that the part where like the wacky stuff kind of starts kicking in is way quicker and way more impactful than it is in way more involved than it is in 999. I will say 999 does a better job of having those kind of plot points showing up towards the end and then like kind of hitting you with that last moment thing. It definitely becomes a lot more common as the series goes on. Zero Time Dilemma, a lot of people don't like that because it's not a visual novel. It's kind of more of like a Telltale game where it's not even really a Telltale game. It's just kind of like it's cutscenes and people move around. And because it's kind of it's made for it was made originally for the 3DS in 2016. It's
Mm-hmm.
not the best looking game even on Steam. It's very simple looking. Character movements are very jagged. Some of the effects are very very like PS1, PS2 quality, but it's still an interesting story. I would have to say the biggest issue with it is just there's a lot towards the end that just isn't satisfying about it, and ultimately the conclusion is either it's a love it or it's a love it or hate it scenario. So
Yeah.
I would recommend like being excited for it, but also kind of expecting some crap towards the end of it, bull crap. But it's nonetheless a very enjoyable journey. That's what I'll say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Uh,
I will definitely have to do Zero Time Dilemma at some point.
yeah.
Yeah. So I'm gonna pull up something that Protoman just said in chat. Let me just put this right here. All right. So so they said VLR is the best. Don't at me. Zero Time Dilemma is a bit interesting, but I still enjoyed it. Again, I actually enjoy Purchase as Reward. I think it's one of the best games on the 3DS, in my personal opinion.
Mhm.
Um, I'll have to eventually do Zero Time Dilemma at some point. But
I personally
yeah.
loved Virtue's Last Reward, and tying it back to like the voice acting in both of those games when they came out were great. I loved the voice acting in Virtue's Last Reward and Zero Time Dilemma. I
Mm-hmm.
would say that's definitely one of the higher points of Zero Time Dilemma as a whole. Um, there's a couple really really good voice actors in those, and also again without spoiling anything, Virtue's Last Reward, the hook with the voice acting in that game. There's a part where that actually plays into like the main plot, like with a certain character and how they're handled in the game, and it's like when you see that at the very end, like when they kind of reveal what's going on, it's like, oh wow, that's really interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But yeah, there was just so many games in general that had like great voice acting, but there's also some games that have very cheesy voice acting as well.
Mhm.
So the next topic, so that brings us to the next topic, and will be the last topic, but we're going to be spending a lot of time on for this one, which is like favorite video games with the best voice acting. But we won't just do favorite video games with best voice acting. It doesn't necessarily mean that like the voice acting is going to be amazing, but there's going to be some stuff where it have its moments. But we'll definitely talk about that. I'll let you go first. What are some games in general that you thought had like great voice acting? Like your favorite games with great voice acting?
My favorite games with great voice acting. I would have to say I mean, it may not be the best in retrospect, but like again, Sonic Adventure 2 was like one of the first games I played with like full voice acting in it. So that game always has like a special place in my memory.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't say the voice acting's bad in it. I would say it's a little weird because of how it's presented in the game with like the lip flaps not matching up because they didn't edit it from the Japanese version. So like a lot of the lines overlap and it's weird. But it's definitely something that stands out to me. It's definitely something I remember very fondly. What other games? I mean, there's games with voice clips from earlier were definitely like memorable too. Like Mario 64, obviously the Mario voice is iconic. Charles
Mm-hmm.
Martinet is he's a master at his craft.
Oh yeah.
Again, I mentioned it before, but Mischief Makers that had a couple fun voice clips in it. I really liked like they were very expressive and anime, and I think that's around the time I started getting into anime too. So it was like, oh, this is just like playing like an anime cartoon, like kind of
Yeah.
like a Saturday morning anime kind of, only like almost kind of like episodic.
Mm-hmm.
Um, One game that I will say like had really had heavily criticized voice acting, but I enjoyed it. It's one that's on your backlog actually, Mega Man ZX Advent.
Yeah.
That game is fully voiced, and in the collection, I believe they have uncompressed voice lines, so they actually sound nice and crisp.
Yes.
Um, that game has some wacky voices in it. I know like a lot of people point to this hunter towards the beginning of this game, the generic hunter who talks about finding booty, and his voice is like really like not even like kind of like it's almost kind of like Shaggy-ish, but not really. It's just like it's like higher pitched. And I mean like yeah, that's a standout, but a lot of the voices in the game were done well. They're just kind of like crushed a bit because of the DS's quality. The DS in general was when a lot of like good kind of voice acting roles came up. Like World Ends With You is timeless. I have
Mm-hmm.
not finished Neo, but the voice acting in that game is excellent as well. Um, what else from back then? I'm trying to think of like older games before I like say anything newer. I know it's a bit of a controversial choice nowadays because of certain people, but Mega Man Legends, of course, is like classic. Those games had such good voice acting in it. Mega Man's voice actor really kind of I was gonna say drilled, no pun intended, in the whole like he's kind of like he's like a kid. He doesn't know like what's going on. He's kind of like he kind of lacks caution. There was the thing where he's like trying to read like what this program was doing at the end of Legends 1, and he couldn't read it properly. He was like, what? He like had kind of stumbling over his words and taking it very slow. It felt very believable, and the reads were very good. I know, like there's a lot of controversy because of one of the voice actors, Teasel's voice actor. He wasn't a very great person, and he's not with us any longer, and it's kind of a very uncomfortable subject.
Mm-hmm.
But like his portrayal of Teasel was like, even if he's not a great person, that portrayal is always going to stick out in my mind.
Yeah.
And I really do hope that if we eventually get a Legends 3 or any kind of remake, we get someone who's different but also can still do that voice justice, just because it very much set a personality for the character.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a bit weird. It's a bit weird to talk about. So I think I'll just stop about that one.
Yeah.
But yeah, Legends in general, like the Mega Man games in general, all have any ones that would have voice acting were really good. 11 has great voice acting as well.
Yeah.
X8 and Command Mission have really good voice acting. X7 not so much. I mean, X7 again is kind of a train wreck all around. But
Like X's voice in that game, like it's a lot deeper than I thought it would be compared to like, in X4. X actually sounds like a little boy in that one. That's
yes.
because of the fact that X's voice actor, or rather voice actress, is the same one as the one in Mega Man 8.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I wasn't really the biggest fan of that voice.
It worked for Mega Man, but not X. Yeah.
But there was a scene in Mega Man 8 that really stood out, like in regards to like Mega Man's voice, that I wasn't really the biggest fan of, and that was a scene where like Mega Man was like just grabbed, and then like it was being shocked, and Mega Man was just screaming. That was
I think I remember that one.
that was actually pretty painful, to be honest. But other than that, like it had some very questionable voice. That game had some questionable voice acting, like the whole Dr. Light, like sounding a little bit like Elmer Fudd. It's like, that's a good question.
It's a good question, Mega Man.
Yes, that one.
Retrieve the energy crystals. I also just it just stands out to me when they call when Mega Man calls Bass Bass in the
Yes.
opening of that game.
Hey, Bass,
But
why must I fight you? We're not enemies.
I mean, I don't blame the voice actress for that. She was just they didn't correct her when she read it like that.
Nah,
I mean,
yeah.
the same thing happens in Mega Man X4.
Yeah.
X's voice, Zero's voice actor in that game tells Colonel to stop the coup, and he says "stop the coup" with the hard P on it, and I'm like, that's not how that word's pronounced.
From
Why
what
did anyone in the recording booth correct you on that?
from what I heard, I'm not sure exactly how true this is, but what I heard was that the majority of the English voice actors were living in Japan, and they had no experience. They were just brought in because like Capcom just needed some people, but they did the same thing for the original Resident Evil. They just hired some actors to portray that had no experience in acting at the time. They just hired people for the sake of just having something. I don't know how true it is, but it sounded like that was what they were doing around the time. Because the voice actors for Mega Man and Mega Man X and 8 and X4, she's a tour guide.
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, she's a tour guide.
I know Capcom when they were developing the original Ace Attorney in Japanese. Shu Takumi, who created the series, he does Phoenix's Japanese voice clips.
Yeah.
The Igiyari. That's him. And then when he did the third game, when he introduced the Prosecutor Godot, who has like the face mask and the vest, that's actually Hideki Kamiya who did those voice clips because he was still working at Capcom at the time.
Yeah.
So he like had him come over and he actually like he partially designed that character after Kamiya. So yeah, they've had a history of kind of just like picking people from the office or picking people like just to fill the spots. I know Sonic Adventure 1 had very similar kind of story with how the casting was done. Apparently they didn't give the voice actors a lot of direction, which is why some of the lines are kind of like disjointed and don't sound all that well.
Yeah.
And I think there was like a lack of experience from some of them. I'm not sure exactly. I would have to reread on that, but again, it's you know.
And I've also heard that one of the voice actors, John St. John, best known for Duke Nukem, he voiced Big the Cat in in Sonic Adventure 1, and he was not the biggest fan of that role. But
I hadn't heard that. I didn't know that. I didn't know he was big. I didn't know he was not happy with it though.
Yeah, but the thing about that was that the majority of them were part of a voice acting agency that was owned or at least managed by Lonnie Manila, who voiced Rouge the Bat in Sonic Adventure 2.
Nice.
Yeah.
I think I just saw Lonnie just announced. I think they announced something with her in it just now, or maybe not. I think she was in one of those Dread XP games or whatever they're called, like the collections. There was that really popular one with the Cthulhu dating simulator, like the Eldritch Horror, and I think the full version that came out of that. And I think she actually does one of the voices in the game, but I'm not sure. I have to look that up. I may not be right on that one.
Yeah. Let's see. But yeah. As far as other voice acting goes, in regards to who voiced what and like the best, like my favorite games in general or our favorite games in general. Another good one I could probably bring up that I personally like the voice acting from start to finish. I absolutely love the performances for Kid Icarus Uprising, like top to bottom.
Yes,
everything about it, start to finish. Everyone played each and every character very well. Like
absolutely. Anthony Del Rio is a great voice actor. I was actually watching some clips of Metal Gear Solid Peace Walker the other day, and he plays Chico in that game.
Really?
I think he's also Chico in 5 as well. I'm not sure. I haven't played 5. I've only played Peace Walker. And he does an excellent job with those like younger like child character male boy characters. He's excellent. I've seen the Kid Icarus Uprising shorts that were on the 3DS as well.
Same here.
And he was in a few of those. He was in Eddie with Pitt in it, which was like 2 of the 3 of them.
Yeah, and then they had I believe it was Hinden Walsh, who was Princess Bubblegum as well as Starfire from Teen Titans. She voiced Viridian in the game, and I felt that her performance was very good. And then you had Cree Summer was in the game, and she was the voice actress for Medusa.
Oh, I'd see. I'd have to look that up because it's again, it's been a long time since I've touched Icarus Uprising, but yeah, I definitely agree. The cast in that game was stellar,
Mm-hmm.
and all of them did great. Hades was definitely a standout in that game. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
I actually, I think his portrayal, just his voice alone, I think was one of the reasons I kept saying like I want Hades in Smash Brothers. I know
Yeah,
he's huge, but we can make it work somehow. I
like
want him in there just to hear more of him.
to me, like I feel like out of the many incarnations of Hades, to me he's actually my favorite, even more than the one that's in the game Hades. I actually like this incarnation of Hades a lot the most because of how flamboyant he was, how like I don't want to say he's arrogant, but he definitely was like a really good villain in the game.
Yeah,
Um,
his personality shined through, and his voice was just like the icing on that cake. Like that definitely sold his character very well.
oh yeah,
Um, but I mean, and again, so it's everyone in that game. It's like that. Magnus had a great voice.
oh that's Fred Tatascore.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But yeah, it was a really good time. I definitely would praise that as an example of great voice acting in gaming.
oh yeah,
Um, trying to
and
think now, like this, because like 3DS, like once you get to the 3DS era, now it's like every game I've played has had voice acting in it. It's like,
oh yeah, like there was like
what can I bring up that's unique to this? Um, I guess I could give a special like shout out here to Star Fox 64 because like those voices were iconic back in the day.
mhm.
Like that's easily one of the most quotable games that has ever existed. I think there was a time where I hung out with a bunch of friends at a convention. I think that's all we did for an hour was just
Yeah,
quote Star Fox 64. And then now for like the last two games they did for 3D and then Zero, they brought back the same voice actors to do it instead of the like because they had like several voice actors for Fox over the years and then they brought the original cast back, and that's kind of like they're kind of like the set character, the set voices for them now, which is really cool. I mean, they don't sound the same, but they still very much capture the essence of all four of those characters, and all of them really, like even the non-Star Fox characters,
oh
like the
yeah.
villains and such.
Not to mention the fact that like the only one I think they did not bring back. I think the only ones they did not bring back were Peppy and Falco. I think they were recast. In the case of Peppy, like I know like not too long ago, I think it was like last year
Yeah,
that the original voice actor for Star Fox 64 passed away, and I don't know whatever happened to the original Falco voice actor. Um, but a lot of the voice cast, especially Fox, he was voiced by Mike West. Like he finally came into the Smash Bros. Series, starting with Smash 4, because like he did not voice Fox in the original. Like they actually used his Japanese voice actor. Same thing with Melee, because like Brawl they ended up using the one from Star Fox Assault,
hmm
and then they brought in Mike West to voice Fox in both not Brawl, Smash 4 and Ultimate, which is amazing considering the fact that like he finally got to do Smash, even though he never got a chance to, since he did voice him in the original Star Fox 64. So that was pretty cool.
yeah. Yeah, it's kind of crazy. Like the Star Fox series, like they've really like the cast has bounced around that so much, and it's really interesting that they were like after all those years, like because when did Star Fox 64 come out? Like 96,
97.
97, 97. In 2011 they're able to get like a ton of these people back to like redo this project and then like to me that kind of blew my mind at the time because it's like wow I would imagine like half these voice actors would maybe not even like they wouldn't be doing it or they wouldn't want to do that specific project. It's crazy that like they were all interested enough to come back and like reprise their roles after all this time.
Yeah,
And it
exactly.
turns out that that's like a very common thing in voice acting, even in like anime, like reboots and new seasons that happen like years after the original. It's like, yeah, they'll still get the original voice actors and actresses back.
Yeah,
They're more than willing to do it if they, if the opportunity presents itself.
yeah,
Um, but of course, there's always issues like even beyond just the opportunity. Sometimes it's just the big thing with voice acting in general is that the pay for video games and anime aren't the best, which is thankfully something that has been a big topic of discussion the last month or so.
yeah.
So hopefully we'll be seeing a lot more accessibility there, just in terms of voice actors being able to get paid more, so that they can spend more time doing what they love rather than having to like make ends meet elsewhere.
Oh yeah, I always
But
feel like there's also favoritism in regards to voice acting, that they always like to prefer using like the same group of people and not branch out to use like other people who have been around for a while, or bringing somebody in that's new to at least give them a chance to make a name for themselves, to see exactly how well they can actually do all the voice acting.
it's very common, and it was especially back in the 2000s and 2010s to like hear the same like three or four voice actors and actresses in pretty much everything. Thankfully, it's branched out a lot lately. We have a lot more studios handling it. We have a lot more talent pools being formed. So hopefully, we're going to see a lot more new talent. Because the thing is, like, it's almost always going to happen in waves. They're always going to like a couple people are always going to like hit their hot streak, and then you're going to hear them in everything.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is, though, like even if there are like three projects that come out like in the same like few months, chances are those were recorded like years beforehand. A very common thing with voice actors, a very common like kind of idiom on Twitter is that like they'll get a ton of praise for like two or three roles getting announced at once, and I mean, meanwhile they're like, yeah, by the way, do you guys have any work for me? I can't afford I can't afford food this month.
Mm.
Do you have any work I could do now? Because
Yeah.
I haven't recorded anything since those roles, and it's been like 2 years. Which is unfortunately just the nature of the of the industry. Like you sometimes you just don't get a role for a long time,
Mm-hmm.
and I mean that's even going above like the indie stuff, like the professionals. Like there are times where I've heard of tons of them like having to live like paycheck to paycheck at another job, or like just not eating every day.
Yeah.
It's terrifying, but it's like it's unfortunately what has to be dealt with right now until hopefully things change. We're really seeing a big push for unionization of anime dubs, and if that goes well, I assume that video games will hopefully be next, because right now neither of those pay residuals. They're kind of just like a flat fee,
Mm-hmm.
and especially for video games, they record say Charles Martin, they recorded the Mario clips from Mario 64, and then they use them in like every other N64 game that had Mario in it.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't get paid for the rest of those. At least I don't know if specifically in his situation he didn't, but like in most normal circumstances, if you record something and it gets reused, they don't even ask for your permission. They
Yeah.
just once you record it for them, that clip is the company's to use forever.
Yeah. They own
So
it.
it's like it wouldn't be so bad if like there was maybe some sort of residual or some sort of reimbursement every time a game was made with the clip in it. But right now we're kind of just looking at like flat fees for everyone, like an hourly recording fee, and it's not the best, especially in anime. It's probably worse in anime than it is in video games right now. But I to just one specific example, there was an anime movie recently. I think I haven't seen it. It's called Jujutsu Kaisen. I've never watched the anime, so I don't know anything about it.
Yeah, I don't really know
But
much
like,
about that, to be honest.
yeah, the voice actors for this is a full movie, and it's made like millions of dollars overseas, and I believe the voice actors were only paid like between like $500 and $800 for their work on that, and that's
Mm.
ridiculous considering how much the movie's made. So it's kind of led to like a big discussion about like rates and unionization and opportunity and stuff like that. Um, so again, it's just like the community and voice acting in general. It's great, but it has a long way to go, and there's a lot that we have to work through there. And I'm hoping that if I can make it up to that level at some point, I can hopefully contribute into improving that field myself. And I mean, anyone can really, if you speak, if people speak up and make their opinions heard to the people in charge, even if they're not voice actors themselves, they'll listen eventually.
Oh
They'll
yeah.
have no choice but to.
Yeah, exactly. It's just a matter of how it's all going to go down, and
Hmm.
what I keep hearing about is that like that there's been some voice actors who got recast for no reason, like because it boils down to the fact that like in the United States we do have a huge problem with video games. Well,
Hmm.
not just video game voice acting, but also like in Hollywood, like it's really bad because and there's a lot of movies um where let's say if they're going to do remakes or if they're going to do like a new movie based on existing IPs, and they don't always go for like the traditional voice actors. They tend to go for Hollywood stars, and that's been a big issue for so long, and it's just more and more people have been speaking out about that for the past couple of years.
Yes, absolutely.
And
I mean, it's an unfortunate thing. Like, especially there's been a few cases lately where I've seen like they kind of not just like celebrities, but they're going like with like influencers who have like no real background in voice acting just because they're popular YouTubers, and it's like they're entertainers at the end of the day, so you can't say that they're not necessarily fit for the job, like not fit for the job,
mhm.
but it's also like it does feel a little weird that like we're doing these big projects and they're getting these people mostly on name recognition and not on talent. And again, it's not always the case, but it is a problem, and it's definitely more an issue with anime, with like anime movies and stuff like that, rather than anime movies and just movies in general. Like
Yeah,
anything that's going to air in the movie theater, they tend to like, if it's not being done by like the companies that like dub the anime directly, they'll always go with like celebrity voices, like in like any Ghibli film or Ghibli film. It's Ghibli, I think. I've seen you here previously Ghibli. I don't think that's right.
I hear both.
A lot of those films have celebrity voice actors in them, or celebrities doing the voice acting, and it's like, okay, it's good, but like we could have given the opportunity to like a seasoned voice actor who would have probably loved to have this role on the big screen, especially if this is like if this is a union eligible role, whereas like most anime and games right now are not union. That's well, it's not every game is not. There are studios that use union talent for their games as well.
Yeah,
And
but
that's actually why a few. Sorry about that. That's actually why a few specific voice actors have mentioned that, like, you might be wondering why I'm not doing a ton of like anime work lately. It's because it's non-union and I can't do non-union work anymore, and that's why I'm mostly big video games now. And it's a problem. That's why we're trying to get the union to be a lot more accessible overall.
yep. And keeping it video game related, but still with Hollywood movies, I will bring up the Mario movie, like how we have this cast. While there's some of them that I'm like fine with, especially Jack Black as Bowser
Mhm.
and Seth Rogen as Donkey Kong. Like the one that I really do not like the most out of all the casting is the most obvious one, Chris Pratt
Yeah.
as Mario. Like I just think that, to me, out of the whole casting, that's the absolute like worst choice. I really think that with like, and the thing is, I don't know exactly what they're gonna do with how like Chris Pratt's gonna sound. If he's gonna do a Mario voice, or is gonna be his own voice. Like I'm assuming it's most likely gonna be his own voice, given
Yeah.
given how Hollywood is gonna be. Like, cause this is yet another problem with Hollywood, and Chris Pratt's also gonna be Garfield in the new Garfield movie. So that's again another thing. Like, um, and in regards to having voice actors in anime, like cartoons, and hell, especially um, video games, like I feel like we really need to be at a point where um, voice actors should be able to voice the roles that they want to voice, and instead of just being recast because, like, let's say for example, at first like a company is using unions, but then they decide to go the cheaper route and go with people who are non-union because they don't get paid much, and which is messed up as well.
Hmm.
Um, and it's like I would like to see some change in how they handle like um, having voice actors moving forward in regards to unions, not unions, and also the pay. Like, because I completely agree with the fact that it's not right when there's a lot of voice actors that like aren't getting paid well, despite how well like a game is being sold or how a movie is doing in performance and all that stuff. It's completely messed up.
Yeah. I mean, there's just a lot of issues all around. It's a hard field to get into, and then on top of that, you're not always treated the best once you're in it. So there's a long way to go, a lot of facets of this that can be changed. And I know like I've like shifted the conversation over to like anime and cartoons a lot,
Yeah,
and that's because it's all kind of connected at the end of the day. Like
they
once
are.
once conditions improve in one facet, we're going to be seeing video games with better conditions. We're going to be seeing like the cartoons, commercial reads are already kind of the big money maker. That's a little kind of open tip for anyone who wants to go into voice acting and actually make money. Train yourself in commercial work too, because that's what pays residuals and dividends, and you're going to be seeing a lot more money from those than anything you make doing anime or video games.
Oh yeah,
Um, and again, don't take it from me though. Just take that's literally like any professional's point of view on the subject. Um,
yeah,
but yeah, like once improvements are made in in one sector, we're going to be seeing the whole industry start to thrive a lot more. Like
yeah,
even the indie scene, we kind of a couple years ago, a few acquaintances of mine who run this big voice acting server, they recently worked on like a rates guide of like what to compensate voice actors, and they kind of had like this thing like it's how many hours, how big is the project, what's your budget, and it's taken off. It's like kind of like a unofficial official standard for indie projects, and a lot of indie projects are following this guide now. So it's like it's made things a little bit better because it's like, oh well, now these voice actors that are like doing these smaller indie projects, they're all still getting paid for it, and they're getting paid what the role is worth or what fits within the role's budget at least that
yeah,
might work for the voice actor, and giving the voice actor more essentially more power to negotiate and more opportunity to improve themselves with their earnings and such.
yeah,
But again, it's a very big open thing right now. Like it could really go any which way. Right now, I feel like the debate that's going on with Crunchyroll and Funimation is definitely going to be kind of like a cornerstone in how things are going forward, because they're also trying to apparently end remote recording, which is another whole facet of voice acting that's pretty much become the standard ever since the pandemic began.
yeah,
And there's really no reason to get rid of it, and getting rid of that pretty much shuts out like 80% of the country of the US from voice acting. It shuts out people overseas from doing voice acting for certain projects, and it's just frustrating because it's like
yeah.
they're doing so well right now.
Mm-hmm.
Why do we have to suddenly go back to like limiting our talent to like the people that live in Los Angeles and Texas? What
Oh
one
yeah,
at least one of those two places that right now aren't super friendly to a lot of the people living there that want to be into voice acting. So it's like it's frustrating. It's frustrating, and I'm hoping that these people speaking out about it and taking to the Twitter and signing petitions and professionals working towards forging new relationships with the company and the union. I'm just hoping it improves everything across the board and leads to a better experience for both the smaller indie people, the people focusing on video games, the people focusing on anime, and the people focusing on Western animation. Uh, yeah.
exactly. Let's hope that things end up getting better in the future for that.
Hmm.
Yeah. Now, going back to the whole topic about favorite games with the best voice acting, I do want to at least bring up one more game in general that because like I talked about Kid Icarus Uprising and how much I actually enjoyed the voice acting in that game. Um, I will say though that like because there's so many other games like Xenoblade Chronicles 1 and also 2 for that matter, but specifically 1 with the voice acting, how they paced everything. I'm not sure if it's the exact same voice clips or if they re-recorded everything. I think it might be the same voice clips. I'm not sure because I didn't play the original. I've only played the remake. So, but
Oh, up
Xenoblade,
one.
Xenoblade 1, yeah.
Yeah. I here's the unfortunate thing for me. I've never touched a Xenoblade game. I have seen a majority of two. My brother got it back when I got it from my brother back when it came out, and that was back when only one Switch. So I was pretty much just sitting in my room watching him play it the entire time.
Oh yeah,
Definitely a unique voice cast. I know a lot of people kind of call out Rex as being like some of his screams at the beginning kind of being like a little flat, but I take that more as the it overall was still a great experience. And like when you listen to like the voices later and like the pirate trailer for Smash Brothers, they
hmm
sound fine. They sound great. So I do agree that they and that's the other thing with Xenoblade too is it's very interesting because that's an English dub that was handled in Europe,
yes,
which is pretty unusual because a lot of times nowadays English dubs are just done in either the US or Canada, and then that's just the version that gets used in the European English version because
yeah.
they're already like, well, we're already doing dubs of it in French and Italian for Europe. Why are we going to bother with another English translation when we have one already?
Well,
Um,
that's because of the fact that originally the game was not going to be localized for North America. Like they
exactly.
were not going to bring it over here. But then, like, there was this whole campaign with Operation Rainfall, which led to GameStop stepping in to teaming up with Nintendo to release it as an exclusive to GameStop, which ended up actually selling much better than like Nintendo of America anticipated. Then Then we got Xenoblade Chronicles X on the Wii U. And then we got 2, the remake of 1, and now we're gonna get Xenoblade Chronicles 3, which is wild. How like now like how much has Xenoblade has grown within the past like 10 years since, because like it was actually about 10 years ago since like Xenoblade Chronicles 1 was released on the Wii in North America.
2011, right? Or 2010?
Like 2010 was Japan, 2011 was Europe and Australia, 2012 was here.
Yeah, and then we did end up getting the other games from that project, from that operation as well. I know we got Pandora's Tower and
Last Story. Like I've heard, I'm sorry. I just want to say real quick that because like Last Story, like I've heard I've heard mixed things about it, but there were more people who like Pandora's Tower more. I haven't played them myself, but I have to play them.
Yeah, no, see, I haven't touched any of them, so it's a little weird.
Xenoblade's the only one that I've actually touched. Yeah. That's it.
But like Xenoblade and Fire Emblem, they kind of both had that like that early 2010s like boost that just thrust them into the spotlight.
Oh yeah.
Between Xenoblade Chronicles and Fire Emblem Awakening, those two games like just they completely revitalized those brands. Mm-hmm. And now one can argue we have too much Fire Emblem. I wouldn't necessarily say that. I haven't played a Fire Emblem in a while, actually. I've just kind of been spacing on them, but it's, people love it, and people love even the mobile game is still raking in millions of dollars for Nintendo right now. I think it's the only mobile game that's like actually super profitable for them at the moment.
Exactly. Like it's the most profitable. Like I think second is probably Mario Kart.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, I think it was like Animal Crossing was the next most successful one.
Yeah, there was Animal Crossing.
It was Animal Crossing, then Mario Kart, and it's weird because now they're kind of hinting that Animal Crossing might be winding down a bit because they're getting rid of a few of the premium features and making them free. Yeah, so it leads me to believe that after Dragalia goes, that's going to be like the next one they're going to put in the chopping block. But Mario Kart is definitely like they're keeping with that. That's still getting constant updates.
Yeah, but yeah, when it comes to voice acting in general, like how many people have impacted all these years, like. So many people to want to get into voice acting. Like I've heard that voice acting in Japan is a lot more respected over there than it is over here. But like it's just now like more and more people have been getting into voice acting like in North America and even in Europe and all that and other territories.
I'm not entirely sure. I actually don't know of the voice acting scene in Japan all that well. I know that like the animation scene over there in general is a very heavy culture of overworking. Mm-hmm. But it does seem like, from what I could tell, it does seem like there are some instances where the voice actors are kind of held in like a higher regard, where they're kind of like considered like they're kind of put in like the same level as like a traditional actor, which is something that doesn't get done often here. And I kind of wish, like, not necessarily like to make them out to be like these like super big stars in America, but I do wish that people would kind of like the general sentiment is that voice acting should be kind of treated more as like a traditional stage acting type thing and get a little more respect than it tends to do here. Mm-hmm. So that's definitely something I could see. Like if that's a big thing in the Japanese voice acting scene, I would love to see that be a little more normalized here in America as well, and just overseas in general. I mean, there's already a lot of opinions going around, and it's just anything that could help the voice actors is definitely a good thing because. Trust me, they don't have it easy. They absolutely do not have it easy.
Oh yeah, they definitely don't, and it's a shame too. Like, cause I know there's a lot of people out there, like very talented people that want to go out of their way to talk about like, or rather just get into voice acting, and there are people who feel like they're just competing with other people just to get a certain role, which. Mm-hmm. I am not sure exactly to what extent like they do it, but what I do know is that there have been people who have known to have been auditioning for certain roles, and then they feel like they were going to get that role and they don't get it, and then there's other people that do, and the thing is I've seen so many different cases in general for so many years, but one thing's for sure about voice acting, and especially for me, because I'm just a fan of voice acting, first and foremost, but I will say, though, that I've always admired so many people, like, doing exactly what they've been doing for so many years. And a lot of people, like, I still hear voices to this day growing up. Like, for example, the longest running American cartoon in history, The Simpsons, they're still doing voice acting there. Like, they're same voices since 1987 when the
Yeah.
with the shorts, and 89 when the show actually first aired. And now it's like, a lot of them are still at it, just doing it to this day for more than 30 plus years. And wow, like, how, like, I've been hearing these people voicing these same characters in my childhood, and the fact that they're still doing that, that's just wild.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Like, when you're doing a character for a long time, you really, you're already going into a role like expecting to embrace the character, and once you've done it enough, it's just like, well, this character, like, yeah, I know that this character's not my property, and it could be taken away from me at any time if the network wants to go in a different direction. But once you've played a character that long, you can't help but feel attached to them, and I'll say that I don't know, like, I know The Simpsons is an interesting case because it's like it's been on an extremely long time. I'm sure that there's definitely a monetary factor involved there as well. Like, these voice actors are definitely getting paid, a cut above what a lot of other cartoon voice actors would.
Yeah,
Um, but it's also a case of, they've done it, they know the characters, they're going to keep doing it because they know these characters and they resonate with them and they want to keep playing them. And yeah, I definitely agreed. Like, Simpsons is definitely probably one of the most, like, the if not the most extreme example of that, of like the cast like staying consistent over time. And I agree that like a consistent cast is very good for a series, especially one that ends up going a long period of time. Just because it's like, you don't want to watch something and then halfway through there's like a new voice and it's like, oh well, it's weird now. It sounds a bit different, and it's like it's not the same.
yeah,
And it's like, yeah, you'll get used to it eventually, but it's also like a very jarring change. I'm sure that's how a lot of fans felt about Pokemon when they changed the cast, because I know Ash and Meowth, I think were, or if not everyone was recast when they switched studios. And I
yeah,
mean, the current voice actors, are doing a great job with them. And a lot of people though were just like, oh well, it was a really big change for me, because it's like, oh okay. But
yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, I think there's kind of merit to both situations. It's great to have a cast that's consistent and know what they're doing for a long period of time. At the same time, for something like Pokemon, where it's on the air for many many years, it's nice to see it get shaken up a bit, because then you're getting a different, like, a different voice actors getting experience in that field, in that position, because there's not always going to be like another chance to get a role like that. So sometimes having multiple people do the same voice or same character, it can be a good thing. I know the original dub of Evangelion.
Yeah,
I think that I believe his name is Spike Spencer. Is his name? He was the original voice of Shinji, the main character, and
right.
then they did a redub on Netflix a few years ago, and now it's a young voice actor named Casey Mangalo, who's also the main voice of the main character in Shin Megami Tensei 5, the Nahobino. They got to be Shinji, and they put their own spin on it, and the original still exists. So it's like, people wanted to watch it, they could go right ahead. And it's like,
Exactly.
if you also want to watch this new take on it, this newer voice actor who's did a lot with their life and have different experiences, they have their own twist on it. So I feel that there's merit in either situation. I think the best thing to do though is, like, if you see someone get cast, just roll with it. Like, yeah, it might suck that if like your favorite character is getting recast after how many years, but at the same time, you know, you could take joy in knowing that someone else is going to be able to embody this character as well, and like put their own spin on it. And I feel like a lot of people may kind of not think that way. They may just be upset if they decide, like, oh, my favorite character is no longer the same person. But it's like, you never know. This Their attitude and their writing is probably still going to be the same as it was before. It's just, we have a new voice for them.
Hmm.
So I always implore people, just at least give a new voice actor a shot if they're being cast into a role that
Hmm.
already had someone playing it.
Yeah,
But I mean, it's there's no harm in having favorites. So if you still prefer the old voice actor, then by all means, that's perfectly fine. Just don't harass the new one for it, please. Because
exactly.
trust me, they're probably just as nervous about their performance going over and being seen as like at the same level as their predecessor,
Yeah.
as a person hearing their voice for the first time would feel.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah. But I think that's gonna do it for tonight. Like I think we covered like practically everything very well. But
Hmm.
I will but before we sign off, I do want to show off one more comment. It's also from Protoman, and they said that's a good point. I never looked at new voice actors for characters that way before, but I definitely will now. Exactly. Like there's always going to be some new voice actors who have a new spin on a voice, like not only a voice but like a character that you're familiar with. And it's always good to give it a chance. And if it doesn't work out, that's fine. But if it works out, then you'll look forward to seeing how well they'll do it next time too.
At the end of the day, I think the most important thing to remember is that there are people that handle, the direction and the overseeing of these recordings. If they don't feel like the new voice actor is doing the right job, they're going to correct them. Whenever you hear a new voice, it's what the studio approved. So at that point, they've already done what they feel works. If you don't enjoy it, that's fine. The vision
Hmm.
for the show have decided that that's what they want to do.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a hard pill to swallow sometimes, but it's also like it's in line with what their vision for the show was, and I think that does deserve respect, at least towards the show itself, even if you're not a huge fan of the voice actor or the voice that they're doing for a particular character.
Right. All right. Well, yeah, but that's gonna do it for this episode of Sharing with Shellshock. Before we sign off, where can we find you?
You could find me on both Twitter and Twitch at Michael Macaw. That's A before the E. A lot of people spell Michael wrong. I don't know why. It's spelled Micheal. It's Michael Macaw, no spaces, on both Twitch and Twitter. I stream about 3-4 times a week, sometimes less, sometimes more,
Hmm.
and I'm usually streaming at night. Like, so if you're a night owl like me, you got a place to hang out. You're always welcome.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah, definitely go check them out. And the last game that they were playing was the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles, which I still have to do the first one at some point.
It is a very very fun game. I'm currently playing to the second one. Um, I'm hoping to get about halfway through it before the end of next week, and then
Hmm.
I'm going to be going to PAX.
Yeah,
So
I'm gonna see you
yeah,
there too.
yeah, we're going to be going to PAX together.
Exactly.
Um, so yeah, I'm gonna be gone and then I have another trip like a week after I come back from PAX. So I'm hoping to like spread the game out to nicely work out with my schedule.
Hmm.
But yeah, that and many, many, many more games coming up as well.
Hmm. All right. Well, that about does it for Sharing with Shellshock. I will be uploading episodes on YouTube in every 2 weeks, but as far as when the next ones go live, well, you just gotta tune in to find out, and also I'll post updates on when the next one will be. But thank you all for coming through, and I'll see you next time. Bye now.